I am the professor, and I approve this message.
Bah! It's Ghostface here, and actually I'm here today not to scare you, but to tell you about fantasy football matchups.
No! It's the professor! Week 9! School is in session! Welcome back, folks. Week 9 is in the house, and so is the professor, here to give you advice for your fantasy football matchups this week. The first matchup we have is our Thursday night game, which is the Kansas City Chiefs at the San Diego Chargers. Honestly, there's not too much to like, really, about either of these teams. San Diego's been pretty disappointing, their offense so far this season. Phillip Rivers has been a little bit disappointing. I kind of like Ryan Matthews in this game just because I think the Chiefs' defense is soft. At the same time, on the other side of the ball, for the Chiefs, the only player I really like is Jamal Charles, and I don't like him that much. He's probably going to have an average game at best. Other than that, with their quarterback situation, I can't like their quarterback, any of their receivers. They're probably going to get shut down by the Charger defense. And as well as the Chargers, maybe in a long shot you start Phillip Rivers and maybe Malcolm Floyd. And those are two very questionable maybes. And next on our agenda is the Carolina Panthers at the Washington Redskins. I'm excited to watch this game. This is going to be a great, great matchup. You've got Cam Newton against RG3, two of the most electrifying quarterbacks to watch in the league right now. And honestly, I think they're both going to put up some points. Both with their legs, both through the air. On the Carolina side of the ball, I'm not a huge fan of any of their running backs. None of them get enough playing time by themselves really to warrant being a starter on your fantasy team. Their wide receivers, I slightly like Steve Smith and LaFell just because Washington's defense is fairly soft and they do like to give up points to the opposing quarterback. And on the Washington side of the ball, I'm a huge fan of RG3 this week and Alfred Morris as well. Not a big fan of too many in their receiving core though. Our next matchup we have for you is the Arizona Cardinals at the Green Bay Packers. If you saw what the San Francisco 49ers did to the Arizona Cardinals last week, then you definitely have to like the Packers' chances because their offense is, I'd probably say, at least 10 times better than the 49ers' offense with Aaron Rodgers, Alex Green. Jordy Nelson should be back, but check your injury report. If he's not, then I really like James Jones and Randall Cobb. And on the Arizona side of the ball, really the only player you may get a start, and it may be only because of bye weeks or flex options, would be Stevens Howling, their running back fill-in. And now we have the Detroit Lions at the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you watched the Detroit game against a tough Seahawks defense last week, they actually were able to put up some points, and Matt Stafford actually had a pretty big day. So I expect him to do the same against a soft Jaguars defense, and for that reason I like pretty much most of the Detroit players. Stafford, I'm actually even liking Mikel LaShore this week. Calvin Johnson, I think he's going to continue to get back on track. And even Titus Young in a flex week, he had a big game last week. He's starting to get some targets from Stafford. I think he should get some points for you too, as well as Pettigrew. Now, on the Jacksonville side of the ball, is Blaine Gabbert even going to play this week? Even if he does, you don't really like a lot of their odds. If you're really in a bye week situation where you need a receiver and you're really, really short, you may look at getting either a Cecil Shorts or Justin Blackmon in. Other than that, Rashad Jennings does a decent fill-in at running back position, but against a tough Detroit run defense, I don't like too many of the Jaguars this week. And now we have the Chicago Bears at the Tennessee Titans. Granted, this is a home game for the Tennessee Titans, but I do have 3 words for you. Bears defense. Their Bears defense is really, really good. I don't really like a lot of the Titans' chances. Chris Johnson was on a pretty good run streak. Now he faces a very tough Bears defense. I don't like him a lot. Maybe only in a stretch situation, Nate Washington, Kenny Britt, or Kendall Wright, and that would only be because they're down by 20 points in the first half and they're going to have to throw. On the Chicago side of the ball, I actually do like Jay Cutler, Matt Forte, Brandon Marshall this week. They've got a pretty easy matchup against the Titans. Even their tight end, Kellen Davis, I think should get in on some action. Next matchup we have is the Denver Broncos at the Cincinnati Bengals. Wow, if you've watched Peyton Manning the last few weeks, he's really looked impressive. I'm ready to say that he's back. He has put up quite a few points the last 2 to 3 weeks, and against the Bengals, I don't think it's going to be any different. Willis McGahee, Peyton Manning makes him better, so I actually like his chances. And of course, Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, both of them are, on their way to 50 catches already over the season, so they're both doing amazing, and it's all because of Peyton Manning. Even their tight end, Joel Dreesen, he's actually doing pretty good at the tight end position as well. Now, on the Bengals side of the ball, the Broncos defense was pretty tough, but Andy Dalton's actually, I think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for, and I think he'll have a slightly above average game. Don't look for anything special, but he's going to have to try to keep up with Peyton Manning. For that reason, I also do like A.J. Green and Hawkins and even Jermaine Gresham this week. And that brings us to the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Baltimore, coming off a bye week, has had time to prepare for the Browns, and really, the Browns are decent, but I don't think they're on the Ravens level. For that fact, I like Joe Flacco. I'm liking Ray Rice. Even Torrey Smith and Anquan Bolden in this game. On the Brown side of the ball, Whedon may be hurt, and they're also going up against a tough Ravens defense. Not a huge fan of Richardson this week. Whedon, if you've been starting him the last couple weeks while he was hot, well, not last week, but if you've been starting him the couple weeks before that, check the injury report, make sure he's healthy. Other than that, really the only one I like on that team is maybe Josh Gordon, because he's been making some big plays these last few weeks. Our next matchup is the Buffalo Bills at the Houston Texans. At first, I think this matchup's going to be kind of close until probably about the second quarter or so, and then I think the Bills will find out why the Houston Texans are one of the best teams in the NFL. For that reason, I do like Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson and even Kevin Walters to get in on the action this week. Arian Foster, that's a no-brainer. You must start him. And Owen Daniels has been impressive at the tight end position this season. On the Bills side of the ball, Ryan Fitzpatrick, unfortunately, I think he's going to have a slightly below average game. He's probably going to end up throwing a couple interceptions or fumble the ball. There's going to be a couple turnovers in there. That Texans defense is tough. I do slightly like Fred Jackson just because I think he may get a garbage touchdown in there, and Stevie Johnson only because I think they're going to be behind and they're going to have to pass. He should get some receptions with some yards. And that brings us to the Miami Dolphins at the Indianapolis Colts. Both of these teams are actually two teams that are surprisingly good for where I think a lot of people thought they would be. Andrew Luck, I know a lot of people expect a lot out of him, and I think he's actually been delivering pretty well. Against the tough Dolphins defense, I don't think he's going to throw for a ton of yards. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. But Donald Brown is back at the running back position. I'm actually kind of liking him, even though the Dolphins do have a tough run defense. I think him and Reggie Wayne are going to be able to help Andrew Luck keep the Colts in this game, even though it may be kind of low scoring. So, I kind of like Reggie Wayne, and I do like Donald Brown, but that's really about it for the Colts. On the Dolphins side of the ball, Tannehill, we still don't know if he's even going to be playing. Maybe Matt Moore. And against the Colts defense, they're probably going to have to try to control the ball with the run game. So with Thomas and Bush, I think they're going to get a lot of action. I do like Reggie Bush in this game. Not a big fan of any of the Miami Dolphins receivers. I do like Fasano, though. In a tight game where maybe they have a quarterback issue, they are going to try to get the tight end the ball. Our next matchup we have in store for you is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Oakland Raiders. Josh Freeman is coming off an impressive game against a tough Vikings defense, so I actually think he's going to come into this game with a lot of confidence, and I think he's going to do well. With that being said, I think Vincent Jackson, Mike Williams are going to have a great game as well. Probably both of them. And I even like Doug Martin's odds as well. He had a really good game against a tough Minnesota defense, that really is tough against the run. And he actually put up quite a few yards against them. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. The little kid should start getting some respect soon. On the Raiders side of the ball, not a huge fan of Palmer. McFadden, I think he'll have an average day at best. If you're a gambling man, maybe Darius Hayward-Bay, Denarius Moore, maybe, and that's if you're a gambling man, only because they may be behind. They may get a garbage touchdown at the end of the game. Really, the only person for the Raiders that I actually kind of like is their tight end, Brandon Myers. He's been getting a lot of catches, and against a tough Bucs defense, they're going to have to throw short, and I think he's going to have to get involved in the pass game. And now we have the Minnesota Vikings at the Seattle Seahawks. Honestly, this is going to be a very tough battle between two great defenses. Really not a lot to like on either side of the ball. I mean, Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch, the two running backs, which are two great running backs, are also going against two stellar defenses. They will put up points. They may be your best option this week. But do I like them? Not really. I think they'll probably have an average day at best. One of them may get a lucky touchdown, and for that reason they'll have an above average day. You pick which one. They're both going against a tough defense. Nobody's going to know. Now, for the receiving core, really the only other one you got to like is Percy Harvin, only because they get that guy the ball as much as they can, and he is dangerous when he's in the open field. Start him. Our next matchup we have is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New York Giants. Talk about another tough defensive grudge match. Honestly, if you watched the Pittsburgh Steelers game last week and saw their ugly uniforms, this game could be about as ugly as those uniforms. Really not a lot to like. Honestly, I'm not a fan of Ben Roethlisberger or Eli Manning. You may have a better quarterback on your bench. You may even have a better option at quarterback in free agency. As far as Antonio Brown, Mike Wallace, Victor Cruz, or Hakeem Nicks, they're all going to have average days at best. Not a lot to like about either of the players of these teams. Maybe you start their defenses, and that might be it. And that brings us to our Sunday night matchup, which is the Dallas Cowboys at the Atlanta Falcons. Really, these two offenses are both pretty potent. Sometimes the Cowboys don't show it, but they can be, especially if they're behind by 20 to 22 points like they were last week. Now, the Falcons, they will put up points. So, the Cowboys are going to have to match them, or they're going to be behind and they're going to have to throw. For that reason, I actually do like Romo, Miles Austin, and Des Bryant this week. Jason Witten, too. If you saw last week what he did with 18 catches, he was amazing. On the Falcons side of the ball, of course, Matt Ryan, Michael Turner, Julio Jones, Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez. Pretty much you got to start them all. I even think Turner, like I said, I think he'll even get in on the action this week against the Cowboys. And that brings us to our Monday night matchup, which is the Philadelphia Eagles at the New Orleans Saints. On the Saints side of the ball, I really like a lot of their team because the Eagles' defense is not all that it's cracked up to be. So I am a big fan of Drew Brees this week, Darren Sproles, even Marcus Colston. I think he'll get back on track, and of course Jimmy Graham. Now on the Eagles side of the ball, surprisingly this week I do like Michael Vick. He's probably going to turn the ball over a couple times just because he always does that, but I think they're going to be behind in this game, and so they're going to have to throw. I like LaShawn McCoy, and I even like Deshaun Jackson slightly this week. I'm not going to say he's going to have a monster game, but he should be slightly above average, as well as Brent Selleck. The Patriots, Jets, 49ers, and Rams this week are all taking a 1-week mandatory vacation, and that brings us to the bye-week Blitz. Now, there's going to be a few players on your team that are going to be sitting down because of a bye week. So I'm here to give you a little bit of advice of maybe who you can pick up in your free agency wire to maybe steal a win this week. At the quarterback position, check for Andy Dalton. He may be available. He's available in a lot of leagues, and I think he's going to have a very strong week this week. As well as Carson Palmer. The matchup doesn't favor him that much. He's going against a tough defense, but they're going to be behind. He's going to have to throw. When they're behind, which they have been a lot this year, he actually puts up slightly above average points. He may be a good replacement in a bye week. For the running back position in Miami, Daniel Thomas, he's going to share the load with Reggie Bush, and with their quarterback hurt, you may see them just running the ball an awful lot and controlling the game, which means he'll score you a few points. He may be a viable bye week replacement. Donald Brown in Indianapolis, he's healthy again. He looks strong. I think he'll actually do very well this week. For the wide receiver position, Cecil Shorts in Jacksonville has been coming up with some huge plays lately. Titus Young on Detroit, Donnie Avery from the Colts, and maybe in your league you may look, someone may have dropped them, or maybe they never got signed yet, Brandon LaFell or Kevin Walter. Check for either of those guys. Those are a few wide receivers that should help you steal a win this week. And that concludes another great webisode. As always, the other fantasy guys would like to thank you for watching. Now, if you have a question about your Week 10 matchups, don't forget to post a question in our comment box below, and we will answer them on next week's webisode. Until then, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to our channel for future updates, and make sure you follow us on Twitter. Tune in next week where I will show you how to make barbecue sauce out of some pink lemonade, some bacon grease, and a few pine cones that you found on the street.